How's it going, everyone? My name is Jake, and I'm back with the second segment of the Jazz Mix Walkthrough series. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the rhythm section as a whole and combining the upright bass with the drums that we mixed in the last episode. But before we get into this video, I want to know from any viewer, what would make these videos better? What would make this information more understandable and easier to apply to your mixes? Also, let me know if you like my videos. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, turn on the notifications, and all that jazz. I've got a bunch of ideas, and any feedback will help me to create better, more informative content for you. So without further ado, let's get into the rhythm section here. So in the last episode, we tackled the drums, and we talked about mixing, the overheads first, about kind of incorporating the genre and kind of mixing to the genre instead of always going with a standard step-by-step mix process. So with the jazz genre, I talked about mixing the overheads first. And another interesting thing that I want to mention about mixing jazz is you can see I didn't add a compressor to every single element in the drums. I actually didn't even add a single compressor. And the reason for that is because I'm not looking to compress and put each element into a specific dynamic range. I want the whole rhythm section to kind of flow and mold together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off putting any compressor on the drums, and I'm going to wait until the last step and kind of add a parallel compression track that has all of the drums and the bass being routed to it. And we're going to put a compressor or two on that and see if we can mold everything together, because I think it'll be better to compress the rhythm section as a whole instead of each individual element. But anyways, let's get into step one of mixing the rhythm section of the upright bass in particular, which will be our subtractive EQ. So let's pull up our EQ 7 band here and let's begin. So usually I start with a high pass filter. However, because this is the bass and we want to save a lot of this lower section, we're going to actually start by adding a low pass filter and see where we start to hear the effect. I'm going to bring it up to 24 dB. So the upright bass does not have a lot of content past 800 hertz, it sounds like. Very little, so I'm going to bring it down to around 2 kilohertz because I do want to save some of the string noise. So let's go to our low frequencies here. I'm going to start doing some subtractive sweeps. I don't really want to take out too much down here because we're going to probably be boosting it to kind of fill out that low end, but we'll see if there's anything that's kind of muddying up the sound a little bit. I'm just going to take out very little bit of 129 hertz there. It's just a little bit boomy for me, around 3 dB. I want it to be clear, upright bass sound. Thick but not too muddy. Alright, let's bring up this low mid frequency here. Right away, 164 sounds pretty rough. Bit more of that. Change that up a little bit. Let's go to our mid frequencies. We know there's not too much that's higher, so I'm going to mostly look in this range here. going to bring that down a bit. Move on to the high mids. It really isn't much above 800 hertz, which is actually quite surprising. I'm just going to take out a little bit of that. So that's cleaning that up. I'm liking that. So I'm going to move on to some additive EQ here. Let's pull up our virtual mix rack. Go down to our FGN compressor, not our compressor, our FGN EQ. I'm going to boost it to 16 dB so we can hear it. I'm going to look at these lower frequencies here around 40 hertz. It's pretty tough to hear, but hoping to kind of fill out that low end, more of a sensation than an actual sound that you're hearing, sound characteristic. So that fills that out a little nicely. I like that. Really listen to that low end. Just kind of comes up a little bit, so I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to pull up our subtractive EQ because now it's going to get a little bit interesting. We have a lot taken out around 129 to 468, so we're going to look in these little gaps to see if anything's going to help us. We might add, let's see here. I'm going to start around 200, pull up the FGS. Bring that Q to the steepest curve here. It's a bit muddy. I'm not going to bring that in. Let's see, 287 to 468. Start like 290. Really listening for things that are just accentuating the natural sound of the bass. I like that. It kind of adds a little bit of power. Bring that down a little bit. I still feel like that's a little bit muddy, so I'm going to look for a different. Awesome. Even though it's so low, I can just barely hear that coming through. I do feel like it's thickening up that lower end. And that's really what I want. Awesome. I'm going to play a bit more of that selection here. Cleans it up, adds a bit of low end. I'm pretty happy with that. So here, now let's go back into the compression here. Let's kind of mold everything together, I want to bring up an auxiliary, stereo auxiliary input. Let's see where it is, right here. Call it PC for parallel compression. I'm going to color it orange, combination of yellow and red. And on the sends, start a new bus 3 and 4, and bring it across everything that we want to be sent to our new auxiliary input here. Everything except the snare reverb, because we don't necessarily want that snare reverb to be compressed. Now we got to make our input bus 3 and 4 so that all of these are being input into this channel. And now we can see that we have signal. I'm just lowering it to make sure I'm not adding too much volume. Awesome. Now let's start doing some compression here. So what I'm actually going to pull up is, so I've recently been using, either the FG gray, the FG red, or the FG MU for compression. But what I'm going to pull up here, because I have not put any compression yet on single elements, I'm going to pull up this BBC rack, which is a combination of all of them. You can see here's the FG gray, here's the FG red, and the FG MU. And this is pretty much what this allows me, is to kind of slowly add in the compression and essentially have more control over the dynamics of this whole rhythm section. So what I'm going to aim to do is start here with the FG gray, and what I'm going to be doing with this is simply trying to tame the transients. So we're going to want a fast attack time, probably a fast release too, but I'm going to start right around here. I'm going to make it so that it hits very regularly, but not very much. So we're going to start at 3. Dial that back a little bit. This will just be our first layer here. So you can see right there, it's only really hitting the snare. I want it to hit the bass a little bit. As much as I don't really want to add too much gain here, I'm going to bring it up to 4 ratio. Okay, that's good. I'm going to keep the attack at the fastest there, because that's what I'm aiming to do, is just tame those transients. Kind of make that snap of the bass and the snare work together. So let's move on to the FG red. And what I'm going to aim to do with this one, as you can see, if you think about the biggest controls really in compression are the attack and release times, because you're choosing the part of the sound that you're compressing. When you have a fast attack, you're essentially, like I said, taming the transients, and the release so that the compressor doesn't overextend and compress unnecessary sonic characteristics in the sustain. So what I'm going to aim to do with the second one, the FG red, is essentially take the next part of the sound, a bit more of the sustain, and start to compress that at its own level here. So let's see, I'm going to bring up the attack a little bit to start and kind of slow down the release a little bit. So it's kind of covering the next section of the dynamics of the elements here. I'm going to bring this up to 4 to start. the ratio down. It's a little bit too much for me. Bring up our first gain up a little bit. Bring that back a little bit, it's a bit much. Slow down the attack time a little bit, see how that sounds. I like the drive control on the low rhythm section because drive is usually adding saturation to the low mids. So this is going to give it a bit more sonic character. Go up till you start to hear it. Dial it back. Great. So I'm gonna hold off there. I think that's sounding pretty good. I don't want to add too much because, as I said, when you're talking about jazz, mixing jazz, you want the compression, the dynamics to be kind of more fluid. You don't want it to necessarily have as much pop and as much power as you would technically want to compress like a pop rock song where you're really hitting the compressor hard. So I'm gonna keep it there at a mild level. Really what I'm trying to do is make it sound as if the bass and drums are working together. Giving them a single channel and essentially putting them in the same dynamic range. So there we have it. That's our mix for our rhythm section. Everything's starting to come together in terms of our jazz mix here. So in the next episode, we'll be adding in our final elements here, our guitars and our horns, which is a little bit of a different elements than we did in our last mix walkthrough. So hopefully you pick something up today on how to kind of bring the rhythm section of a jazz piece together, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have a great day.